I mentioned earlier in the show, I have seen coaches from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of experience levels work out. The most unique hire, or one of the most unique hires of this cycle, is in Corvallis, Oregon. Jamarcus Shephard was the wide receivers coach at Alabama, at Washington before that, on staff with Kalen DeBoer. He is the new head coach at Oregon State. Now, they were looking at a couple of different candidates here. The Montana State head coach, Brent Vigen, don't actually know how to pronounce that. It'd be tough to be compared to the meatless diet all the time if that was how it's pronounced. But he's at Montana State, really good head coach, really good. They looked at the North Dakota State head coach. Then he got extended. They looked at Justin Wilcox, who just got fired from Cal. They land on Jamarcus Shepard. Now, I understand the upside of Jamarcus Shepard seems very great, which I'll get to in a moment. Oregon State is taking a gamble here. He has not been a head coach before. Now, Trent Bray, he was on staff with Jonathan Smith, who we'll talk about in just a moment. He was the easy hire because you were trying to keep something together. You needed to make a move, and no one really knew what the job was. Oregon State in the New World Pac-12 is a better caliber job relative to the rest of its conference than it was in the old Pac-12 when Jonathan Smith built them up to be a top 20 team in 2023. So Jamarcus Shepard is getting his first chance to be a head coach, and there's absolutely a possibility that he isn't there in a couple of years. This hire reminds me very much of Fran Brown at Syracuse, who just had a really bad season. They only won 3 games. They got they got injured at quarterback, Steve Angeli. Fran Brown's a really good head coach. And so he too, I believe, was a position coach before he got hired to Syracuse, which is not traditionally a huge brand. He went there coming from the SEC, and he won 10 games in his first year. I'm not telling Oregon State fans that's what's going to happen. The upside of Jamarcus Shepard is that every time I talk to somebody about this guy, it's rave reviews. I've had a couple different people tell me that. His background has ties to the West Coast. He's been at a high-level program in Alabama, worked under a really good head coach in Kalen DeBoer, and this is kind of a cherry on top. Maybe he brings a few Alabama transfers when that portal window opens in January. Maybe. Just maybe. So I think there's a lot of upside to Jamarcus Shepard, who feels, again, a bit like Fran Brown, like an energy culture guy who you're taking a bit of a swing on. And he stood out to me from the other candidates in this search because he didn't have as much experience. And there was a situation with Vigen, the Montana State head coach, about he flew into Portland, he interviewed, all that stuff. It came back to Jamarcus Shepard, and I don't think this is a settle sort of move. This is a guy who reportedly interviewed incredibly well, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest, and I think can go there and succeed. And yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. And you're taking a little roll of the dice by hiring another first-time head coach. But if Jamarcus Shepard and Trent Bray, before they were head coaches, interviewed, I suspect that Jamarcus Shepard would have been hired. Bray made sense at the time, started out well. He was 4-1 through his first 5 games as a head coach. After that, I think went 1-11, something in that regard. So this is a start from scratch. And even if just a few players from Alabama come from Tuscaloosa to Corvallis, I think that alone could invigorate some fans that are struggling to feel excited about college football right now. So going forward in the New World Pac-12, I think Jamarcus Shepard can work. I don't know how immediate it's going to be. That's going to depend on who he can bring in starting in January. And obviously he's got to assemble a staff. But how about this? Jonathan Smith out at Michigan State. Is this a little quick? Yeah, I actually think it is. And he's in year 2, and they regressed, without question. They got worse. Aiden Childs wasn't developing the way that he should. This was not a good day for Oregon State fans. The coach who left you gets fired the same time that you hire a new head coach that can inject new life into the program. So, Beaver fans getting some good vibes, and boy, they haven't had very many of those in the last couple of years. And they got housed by Washington State on Saturday to boot. The Pac-12 championship in 2025, officially a tie, 1 win, 1 loss apiece. Yeah, anyway. So, Jonathan Smith was very much in the mindset of any port in a storm when the Pac-12 was collapsing and I can't be at Oregon State and all. He would have been better off to stay. He would have had a lot more leeway. He would have had an easier path to winning football games. He moved into the new Big Ten knowing, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA are coming along. And by the way, he's lost to all of those teams since going there and just about everybody else. They picked up their first win of the season in Big Ten play against Maryland. Yeah, that should not have been enough to save his job if you were that close. And it of course wasn't. I actually felt like this was a year too early because you decided to move on this late in the cycle. You're playing musical chairs, and look how many chairs are empty. Not very many. So I don't like what this says about the judgment of the Michigan State coaching staff. Let's let him finish it. He won the game, and then you fired him. If that's the case, you should have either fired him or said you were keeping him like Wisconsin did with Luke Fickell, which had some good results, by the way, towards the end of the season. They started playing much better football. You should have done one of those two things. Now, Jonathan Smith is the one mostly responsible for Michigan State's failures in the last couple of years. He's owed over $30 million, by the way, to not coach at Michigan State. So now you've got a couple of coaches in the last couple cycles for Michigan State or at the school that you're paying big buyouts to. And I know the Mel Tucker situation, not what I'm here to discuss. I don't know that I love what's going on with their decision making here, because I think you need to give a head coach 3 years. And yeah, Jonathan Smith went backwards in year 2. It was not good. It was really, I thought they might be a bowl team this year. They were not. They won 4 games. They should have been able to win at least 6. That's all he needed. He didn't have a flag planting win, but he just needed to make a bowl game. He would have been able to stick around. With their schedule, they should have been able to do it, even though it was really difficult. So I get that. But now look at the number of candidates that you're going to, and it seems like they're going to go hire Pat Fitzgerald. That's what the indications are. The former Northwestern head coach who cleared up his off-field situation and cleared himself of wrongdoing in that whole situation that led to his firing at Northwestern. And look, Pat Fitzgerald is a very liked and well-respected guy. If he winds up being the hire, I don't know. It's not splashy. Not every great hire is splashy. Kurt Signetti wasn't. It was just a good hire. I just get bad. The timing, the decision, I just wonder. I don't know. I've got red flags going up in my head about that Michigan State situation. That just felt like it was very reactionary, but not reactionary enough. And I think they should have given him 1 more year. But Oregon State fans probably happy to have a head coach they're excited about, while their former head coach isn't. That, by the way, Jammarcus Shepard, I give him B- only because he's not proven. I strongly suspect that he'll have some level of success. But when you're a new head coach, there are always bumps. You can look across the way in Eugene. Dan Lanning, I think we all agree he's pretty good going to the playoff for a second straight season. He's won 24 games in the last 2 years. That's a lot. Go back to his first year. Had some serious bumps. And at Oregon, that's different than what bumps and bruises look like at Oregon State. Still, B- there. If I were Michigan State, I'd try to go get Willie Fritz at Houston, if you could. They're in my top 25 this week. You can check that out on Twitter at @lockdown_CFB. So, my lowest graded coaching hire is Tavita Pritchard at Stanford. Now, I think what Andrew Luck is going for here is the Jed Fish hire, who was a quarterbacks coach in the NFL with the Patriots and the Rams and I don't know that he was actually full-time play caller there. This again is not a splashy hire. This is Andrew Luck, who I'm fully supportive of him being around that program and him trying to implement a new version of Stanford football that gets back to winning. I'm here for it. I really am. I've grown up with Stanford having great seasons my whole life, and I would love to see him get back to being good. And in the ACC, they can climb. Pritchard was a longtime Stanford assistant. He's been in the NFL the last couple of years, quarterback coach with the Commanders. There's Jedfish upside here. I don't think this is the upside I'm going to give Stanford hiring Tavita Pritchard. When Arizona hired Jedfish, I had the same sorts of reservations. Like, really? Maybe I just need to get off my high horse and trust Andrew Luck. Maybe. But he hired a guy who he knows. He hired a guy who is a Stanford guy. That's not the best reason to hire somebody. It's not. Maybe he's really good. Maybe he'll do really well. I wish him luck. But I give that a C-. So far, that's my lowest graded hire of the coaching carousel. More to come on tomorrow's show. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.